On the outskirts of a small town, where houses rarely met each other and fields stretched for miles around, stood an old mansion. The locals avoided it, whispering about a spirit named Charlie who supposedly dwelt within its walls. According to legend, Charlie was a good-natured ghost who loved to joke around, but his mischief sometimes went too far. One day, a family from the city decided to move into the mansion, not believing in the old superstitions. Mom, Dad, their 2 children, Aayu and Pihu, were determined to make this house their cozy haven. The day after moving in, the children, while exploring the attic, found an old, dusty Ouija board. It had letters of the alphabet, numbers, and the words yes and no on each side. In the center lay 2 pencils, crosswise. Deciding that this was a great way to have fun, Aayu and Pihu came down from the attic and suggested that the family have a session after dinner. As darkness fell, they gathered around the antique table in the living room, the only light coming from the candles. "Charlie, Charlie, can we talk to you?" the children asked, breathlessly. To their surprise, one of the pencils slowly turned to say yes. Everyone froze, looking at each other in disbelief and excitement. They continued to ask Charlie questions, which he answered by moving the pencil. At first, it seemed harmless and even amusing. Charlie predicted the weather, the results of sports games, and even where Mom hid the cookies. But the atmosphere in the house began to change. The light in the living room flickered and went out, leaving the family in complete darkness. A cold wind came from the fireplace, which hadn't been used in a long time, despite the closed damper. Whispers became audible in the room that seemed to surround them on all sides. "Who are you?" Charlie Dad dared to ask, his voice trembling with fear. The pencil paused and then moved swiftly to the word friend, but the atmosphere in the room grew more and more tense. The walls began to vibrate slightly, and a muffled thumping sounded from under the floor. The family sat hugging each other, unsure of what to do next. Then Aayu remembered a rule he'd found near the board in the attic to end a session with a spirit. One must clearly say, "Charlie, Charlie, Charlie, we're ending the game," and cross the pencils in reverse order. Gathering his will in his fist, Aayu spoke these words aloud. The wind in the fireplace died down, the house lights suddenly turned on, and the heavy atmosphere dissipated as if it had never been there. The family breathed a sigh of relief, exchanging tired smiles. They had decided that this was the end of their experiments with the paranormal. But despite the relief, they each felt uneasy during the night. Little oddities began to occur throughout the house, objects disappearing, unexplainable sounds behind the walls, figures flickering in the mirrors. The next morning, they discovered that the seance board and pencils had disappeared. Searching all over the house yielded no results. It was as if Charlie had decided to stay with them, becoming an invisible member of the family. Though no one else spoke his name aloud, a subtle reminder of that night hung in the air. As the days passed, the family began to notice that, despite the oddities, some protection had settled into the house. When thefts began in the neighborhood, their house was somehow avoided. If any of the children were sick, the ailment went away much faster than expected. Aayu and Pihu would find small gifts at the door of their room: ancient coins, beautiful pebbles, flower petals. In the evenings, when the wind would blow in the windows and the family would gather in the living room playing board games or reading books, they would sometimes hear quiet laughter echoing through the house. It reminded them of Charlie, and they smiled back, taking his presence for granted. Over time, the story of Charlie and the family who were able to turn an otherworldly intruder into a protector became a local legend. They never knew if Charlie was really a ghost, or if it was all just a play of imagination set in motion by an ancient seance board. But one thing was certain: sometimes the world of the paranormal brought not only fear, but also protection, unexpected gifts, and even laughter at the most unexpected moments. It had been several months since the family had first encountered Charlie. Life in the old mansion had taken on new colors. Mom sometimes noticed how recipes in the kitchen spontaneously opened on the most unusual and delicious dishes she had never cooked before. Dad, who worked from home, found that his office became a source of inspiration, and work flowed as if it were a work in progress. Aayu and Pihu always found their rooms perfectly cleaned when they returned from school, even if they had left them a mess in the morning. Over time, the family began to notice that their home had become popular with the local animals. Cats loved to lie on the doorstep, birds often flew to the windowsills, and one day there was a friendly raccoon in the backyard that wasn't afraid of people. Mom joked that Charlie probably communicated as well with animals as he did with people. One fall day, when the trees around the mansion flashed all shades of red and gold, Aayu found an ancient chest in the garden. On it were images of strange symbols and signs, very similar to the ones they had seen the night of the seance. Inside the chest was a book with stories about ghosts and spirits, and a strange metal object that looked like a compass. They decided it was a gift from Charlie. That evening, the family gathered in the living room to explore the find together. The compass was unusual. Its arrow rotated without stopping until Pihu touched it. Then the arrow stopped, pointing to a secret door in the wall that they didn't even know was there. Behind the door was a narrow staircase leading down to a secret basement. As they walked down the stairs, they felt a chill run down their skin. The basement was a large room, the walls of which were hung with paintings and photographs of the previous occupants of the house, including a portrait of Charlie. In the center stood a table on which lay various magical artifacts, maps, and ancient letters. Among the letters was one addressed to them. In it, Charlie talked about his life, how he became a ghost, and why he stayed in this house. As time passed, the family began to notice more and more signs of Charlie's presence in their lives. For example, on cold winter evenings, they often found the living room surprisingly warm when they came home, as if someone had stoked the fireplace for their absence. And when Mom forgot to turn off the iron or the coffee maker, those appliances would magically appear to be turned off, preventing possible danger. One day, Aayu and Pihu decided to give Charlie a present. They painted a picture of a happy family with a friendly ghost and left it in the living room overnight with words of thanks. In the morning, the painting was gone. In its place, they found an old book on the table with stories of ghosts and magic they had never seen before. It became their favorite bedtime reading, and they even started making up their own stories with Charlie as the main character. Years passed. Aayu and Pihu grew older, and the legend of Charlie became part of their family stories, passed down to new generations. The children attended university, their parents were proud of their successes, and the house was always full of warmth and laughter. However, the day they all feared was approaching, the time to sell the old house. The parents decided it was time to move to a more comfortable home closer to the city, where the children had already started their own lives. Everyone was worried about how this change would affect Charlie. Would they be able to take him with them, or would the ghost prefer to stay in the house that had been his shelter for so many years? On the last night before the move, the family gathered in the living room to say goodbye to Charlie. They expressed their gratitude for all the years of friendship and protection. That night, the house was bathed in a particularly soft light, and an air of farewell and gratitude was in the air. The next morning, when the family was ready to leave, they found a small package at the door. Inside was a photograph of the mansion, in the background of which, if they looked closely, they could see a dark figure that looked like Charlie waving at them. Underneath the photo was the inscription, "Always with you." It was Charlie's farewell, his way of showing that even though they were leaving home, the friendships and memories they shared would stay with them forever. The family realized that although Charlie remained in the old house, his spirit would always accompany them wherever they went. The new owners of the mansion sometimes heard strange noises and saw flickers in the hallways, but it never seemed threatening to them. Thanks to the stories told by the previous owners, they knew about Charlie and accepted him as part of their new home. The family, however, when they moved into their new home, sometimes noticed little signs and wonders that reminded them of Charlie. a slight rustle in the room when everyone was home, a warm breeze filling the house with the sudden scent of flowers at the most unexpected moment, or a soft pat on the head when someone in the family was sad. These small miracles reminded them that Charlie was not just a ghost from their past, but an eternal reminder of the power of friendship and caring. Even as life went on, the story of Charlie, Aayu and Pihu remained in their hearts. They told it to their children and grandchildren, teaching them to be open to the unknown, to respect the unknown, and to remember that sometimes unusual friends can be the most loyal and kind. Charlie wasn't just a game or a story to scare friends. It became a symbol that there is room for miracles in the world, and that sometimes you just have to open your heart to see them. The story became a reminder that every corner of our world has hidden stories and secrets waiting to be discovered by brave hearts. So the story of Charlie became a legend that lives on in the hearts and minds of all who heard it, reminding us of the importance of believing in the impossible, and that even the most ordinary places can hide something magical that can change our lives for the better.